Indianapolis Colts just decided to go with Daniel Jones as the starting quarterback come week 1, and I absolutely hate this decision. So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing why the Colts quarterback move feels desperate and it could spell for a recipe for disaster. Subscribe and like the video if you do go to enjoy. Let's hop into it. So yes, Daniel Jones will be the starting quarterback week 1 for the Indianapolis Colts, and as an avid Anthony Richardson fan, I think this move is just ridiculous. You drafted Anthony Richardson just 2 years ago in the top 5 of the 2023 NFL draft. He was of the likes of the Strouds and the Bryce Youngs. Obviously, he was a flawed prospect, definitely not a perfect prospect by no means, but you give up on him just 3 years into his career and don't even allow him to start this upcoming season. I think the move is ridiculous, especially when you talk about how talented this team is. Not giving this young quarterback an actual opportunity to go out there and showcase his ability, to me, is just not right. When I look at this Colts team, it is very talented. You have Jonathan Taylor, you have Michael Pittman, you have Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell, Ashton Dulin, Tyler Warren now. You have so many weapons for a young quarterback to work with to go along with an offensive line that is still very good. I thought the whole purpose of adding Tyler Warren was to give Anthony Richardson a young prospect to work with to be his safety blankets. You also made several win-now moves to add a ton of pieces on the defensive end, so that way if Richardson were to struggle here and there, you would have the defense to stand up and make a lot of plays. But instead you go with Daniel Jones, and let's just keep it honest here with one another. Daniel Jones has never been a really good quarterback in the league. He has been, at best, like maybe the 20th best quarterback, and even then, for most of his careers, he has been arguably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. And that's not to sound exaggerative or anything like that, but let's not lie to ourselves. His career high is 3,200 passing yards, and his career high in touchdowns was 24, and that was his rookie season. His best year was in 2022 when Saquon Barkley was carrying the team, and in that season he had 15 touchdowns and 5 picks, and we all consider that a step forward for the guy. They paid the dude after that season when he had 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Since then, he has 2 touchdowns and 6 picks in 2023, where he was injured for most of the year. And then last year for the Giants, he played in 10 games, had 8 touchdowns and 7 picks. This is not an NFL starting quarterback. You want to know who has the potential to become an NFL starting quarterback? Anthony Richardson. He has all the talent in the world. He was drafted as a developmental prospect. And yet, despite everything like that, you decide to go with maybe the floor play, with the higher floor in Daniel Jones. And even then, your roster was so talented, even if you had a struggling quarterback in Anthony Richardson, your team was good enough to probably still win 8 games with bad quarterback play. Now you're going to go in there with Daniel Jones, and I don't know if he'll start for the full season, and I kind of doubt it. I think it's ridiculous that he's starting any game this upcoming year. Richardson has only played in, I think, 15 games in his young career. He is way too talented to just begin tossed aside in his 3rd year for a 7th year quarterback who has been nothing but god-awful for most of his career. This Colts team deserves better. They are way too talented to be wasting their time on a now 28-year-old quarterback that has 70 touchdowns and 47 picks to his career through 6 years. For reference, that's about an average of, I think, like 12 touchdowns per season, maybe a little bit less than that. This guy is just not a starting caliber quarterback. And besides that, one of the biggest knocks about Richardson is his health. It's not like Daniel Jones has been a very healthy quarterback for most of his career. He played 13 games his rookie year, 14 the next year, 11 the next year. His most games played was in 2022, where he played 16. Since then, he has 6 games played and 10 games played for a total of 70 games through 6 years. Now, yes, some of that was because he got benched, but that should tell you more about him. But he's also been injured a lot too. So it's not like you could say, well, we just trust Daniel Jones to be on the field more. That makes no sense, because he's also missed a lot of time, and he's gotten benched plenty of times for when he has been on the field, not playing very well. When it comes to Anthony Richardson, you drafted him as a developmental quarterback, knowing that he was going to take probably 2 to 3 years to develop into the quarterback that they drafted him to be. But because of injuries, that timeline kind of got moved back to maybe more like 3 to 4 years. This year, he's heading into the season for the most part pretty healthy, and this was supposed to be a big year for him to continue his development, get more comfortable in the system, and get some reps under his belts. But the team is not even allowing him to do that. They're sitting him on the bench to do what? to learn from Daniel Jones, that makes no sense at all. It just simply is a mistake, and I think it reeks of desperation. I think this reeks of a head coach in Shane Steichen who knows his job is on the line this year, and he cannot afford to go out there and let Anthony Richardson have a bad week because he thinks he might get fired instantly if he does so. Well, I hate to break it to you, Shane Steichen. By starting Daniel Jones, you're going to lose your job regardless. Daniel Jones is arguably the worst starting quarterback in the league at this point, when you had a guy in Anthony Richardson who by no means would have been a top starter in the league this year, but at least has the talent and upside to get you there. I think the move is ridiculous. When you look at the rest of the roster, though, it is such a stacked roster that it's just kind of a shame that they are doomed to probably be what they have been the past couple years, which is mediocre because of quarterback play. Like, let's look at the roster here. Look at the offensive side of things. So many weapons to work with, so many pieces and guys here who are in the middle of their prime, ready to have a breakout season. Jonathan Taylor is not getting any younger. He's one of the best backs in the NFL. Your receiving core is stacked with talent. And yes, there's some young pieces here, but you also have a Michael Pittman Jr. in the middle of their prime. Tyler Warren is now in his rookie season, so he's got a few years. But then you look at the offensive line. Your left guard and left tackle are both getting in almost in their 30s and in the prime of their careers. They're both some of the top players in their position, yet we're wasting it on Daniel Jones. The rest of the offensive line is not like they're a whole lot younger either. Yes, there's some young guys here and there, but Braden Smith's not getting any younger. Defensively, this is a relatively middle-aged defense. I mean, guys like Kenny Moore, Travarius Ward, Jalen Jones, Zaire Franklin, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, all those guys are in the middle of their prime, in the midst of their careers. Yes, you have some younger guys along them, like Alaiatu Latu, Cam Bynum's fairly young, etc. You do have some depth and some youth there, but for the most part, this is a team that is ready to go all in right now, and yet we're sitting here wasting our time with a quarterback that is at best a backup in the NFL. I think it reeks of desperation. It reeks of a team that, simply put, is content with being mediocre. Why should we try to compete with CJ Stroud and the Texans or Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars when we can go out there and throw Daniel Jones out there and see if Danny Dimes can go out there and make some plays? I hate to break it to you guys. It's just not going to happen. Yes, I think Daniel Jones is a good fit in Shane Steichen's system. Yes, I think he could have arguably his best year of his career. It really would not shock me. But let's be honest. Daniel Jones' best year of his career is still a bottom 5 quarterback in the league. Even if Danny Dimes goes out there and plays really well for his standard, you still have a bottom 5 quarterback in the league. Let's put that into context. If Richardson goes out there and has his best year of his career, we're talking about a top 20 quarterback in the NFL. And if he reaches his talent, maybe even top 15, maybe even top 10. Probably not this year, but 2-3 years down the road potentially. Instead, you're going with Daniel Jones, who even at his best is still way worse than every other starting quarterback in the league, and pretty easily is probably the worst starting quarterback in this division, and that is with a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward, who is also in this division. And Trevor Lawrence has not played great in his career either. So you have the worst starting quarterback in the league when you could have had potentially the higher upside guy. And let's not overreact here. Anthony Richardson would have also been considered one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league, and he probably would have came into this year, if he was a starter, as maybe the worst quarterback in this division. I think there would have been a conversation between him and Cam Ward. But at least there is a ceiling there with Anthony. At least there is something there. And even though the floor is probably not as high as Daniel Jones, because at least Daniel Jones won't make some of the mistakes that Richardson will make, Richardson will make up for a lot of those mistakes with some of the awesome plays he might make on the side. Whereas for Daniel Jones, you're not quite getting that same level of play. Daniel Jones is a check down guy. He's somebody who's going to typically make the right throws, but they like to acclaim him as a smart quarterback. But when you watch him on the field, he doesn't really play like a smart quarterback. His numbers are not impressive. His efficiency is not impressive, which are all things that you would expect from a smart quarterback. Not saying he's dumb. He went to Duke. I did not go to Duke. So shout out Daniel Jones. I'm not sure if he has a degree or not, but he still went to Duke. But you get my points. Richardson needs the time on the field. He needs the reps. He needs the development. And again, we're giving it to Daniel Jones. I can't stop saying that over and over again because it's just ridiculous to me. It literally makes no sense. Why would you even want to go with the high floor pick here? Because if you even were to somehow reach that high floor, let's say you get to 8 or 9 wins, that's probably what you would have gotten with Anthony Richardson. And at least if you tried Anthony Richardson, you could check if he is your franchise guy. If Anthony goes out there and he is not good next year, then that's fine. That's okay. We move on. We move forward. We go out there and we draft a quarterback next year. And then we could go after, an Arch Manning or something like that. But by not even starting Anthony Richardson, you're never really going to be able to tell if he was ever going to be the guy. It's going to consistently be a bit of a what if. Now, again, I do want to say, I think at some point Richardson will get the start this year, but I think you're kind of setting him up for failure. You've completely killed this guy's confidence by benching him last year for Joe Flacco, now benching him this year for Daniel Jones, both of which should have never started in the first place. So you shot the kid's confidence down. He's only 23 years old. I'm 23 years old. I could not imagine being in the same boat as this guy. And instead of doing the right thing and sticking with your young, youthful quarterback, they benched the guy. Let's not forget, the New York Jets let Zach Wilson play for multiple years as the starting quarterback. And when Aaron Rodgers went down with injury, they did not sign a veteran quarterback. They went with Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson showed zero flashes in his young career, nowhere even close to the extent of Anthony Richardson. And unlike Anthony, Zach Wilson played when he was out there. He was fully healthy. Richardson has not even been able to do that because of injuries that have really hurt his career. So if the New York Jets, who are almost the definition of dysfunction, will let Zach Wilson start for them for, what was it, 3 or 4 years, it's just crazy that a team like Indianapolis, who spent a top 5 pick on Anthony Richardson, are not even allowing him to start this year. It is just a almost mind-boggling decision. We can even look at like a Deshaun Watson, who the Browns let start for multiple years. Yes, I know there's contract there, but still, you want to be a competitive team, and you're throwing Deshaun Watson out there, and they trusted him out there for, what was it, 3 or 4 years too. And Deshaun Watson had the same issues as Anthony Richardson of being able to stay on the field. But at least with Anthony, you know, you don't have a bad guy. Like, Richardson's a good guy. He's a good character. I've never heard anything bad about him. Yet, despite that, they're punishing him by putting him as the backup quarterback. It makes zero sense at all. The only explanation that would maybe make sense is that they think they want to protect him because of this injury he had on his finger, and by allowing him to sit for a couple weeks, they can then throw him out there in some easy matchups to gain his confidence back up. But still, that makes no sense. You want him to have confidence, you throw him out there week 1 and tell him he won the starting job. That would give me confidence. If I'm out there competing for a spot and I lose the spot, I'm not going to have the same confidence as if I had won the spot. I think it just even gets even worse because now we're hearing some conversations with his agent talking about, is there a trust between Richardson and the front office? And they're saying no, basically. And I don't really blame them. They drafted this guy knowing he's a developmental piece, knowing he's going to need time and playing time on the field to develop his skills in which I think are through the roof. And you don't start him in his 3rd year after he's only played in 15 games. I can't really blame the guy for not trusting the team. If it was me and, you know, I had the possibility of asking for a trade, I think I would consider it. Because could you imagine Anthony going to a team that is actually willing to give him time on the field to develop? Like, if he got traded right now to a Pittsburgh or an LA, the Rams I'm talking about, or one of those teams, and they could sit behind a Stafford or a Rodgers for a year and then next year be the starting quarterback, like, that would do wonders for his career. And I guarantee you he would make the Indianapolis Colts probably look really stupid for doing the move. But instead, the Colts are what feels like giving up on the guy 15 games into his career, not even a full season of NFL play, and they're giving up on him. Now, granted, I will say they do watch him in training camp. They know more about him. They see the footage, and I understand. I don't think Richardson was perfect in any of those preseason games. I thought he made mistakes, but for all the bad that you get with Richardson, you also get the good that comes with him, and you had a chance to see if he could have been the guy, and you just give up on him. I understand maybe he wasn't the greatest fit in the Shane Steichen system, but you at least owe it to the kid to give him a shot. You owe it to him to at least try and make it work, but they didn't even do that. If it was me, and I understand this was probably a decision that both the front office and the coaching staff made, I would be asking for Shane Steichen to be fired, which is a shame because I think he's a smart offensive mind, but I don't think he's done a very good job with this team. I think he is managing this team very poorly. And by the way, this is coming from a guy who, when they hired Shane Steichen, I was a big fan of the move, but I just don't think he's head coach worthy. He just doesn't seem to understand or grasp the concept of what developing is and having patience. It feels like this is somebody who is just completely reaching right now and begging Daniel Jones to lead this team to a playoff spot when it's just not likely to happen. This team is competitive. This team is good. You start Anthony Richardson, if you let him develop, if you let him get more comfortable, by the end of the season, this team could be a playoff caliber team. It's very loaded with talent. There are so many pieces to like here. And if you had let Anthony actually start, man, you could have had this guy, maybe struggle for a few weeks, but maybe by week 6, he gets a groove going, gains some rhythm, starts playing well. And this Colts team could have went on a stretch later in the season that maybe could have led them in the playoffs. It's not like the AFC is so stacked with wild card teams that the Colts have no shot of making it. And it's not like the AFC South is so loaded with talent, the Colts have no chance of winning it. Like, they have a chance of doing so. Yes, the Texans would be the heavy favorites, but Indianapolis has the roster to compete with a lot of different teams out there. So with Anthony, he at least gives you a ceiling to potentially go out there and win the division, or at least make a wild card spot. But with Daniel Jones, like, you're basically setting yourself up for, at best, like a 9-win season, maybe a 10-win season, but that's not going to get you very far. If you somehow make it into the wild card and Daniel Jones is your starting quarterback, you're going to lose in the playoffs. At least with Anthony Richardson, he gives you a shot of winning each game with some of the ridiculous plays he can make with his feet or with his crazy arm. Yes, he's going to throw an interception that has you scratching your head. He's going to have some plays that is just ridiculous, but he's only played in 15 games. You got to allow the kid to make some mistakes. I think the decision is just absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure Colts fans are a little bit understandably frustrated here, and I feel bad for them. And I sort of wonder if this Colts team is doing this because they want to try and trade Anthony Richardson and then go all in for a draft pick next year, which that doesn't necessarily seem unlikely. There is a lot of talent in next year's quarterback class, and maybe they could be eyeing down Arch Manning. Of course, Peyton Manning, former Colt, Arch Manning going to Indianapolis. Could be pretty cool, but I don't know. That's the only explanation that actually makes sense to me. I can't imagine Shane Steichen is so dumb to believe that Daniel Jones can seriously lead this team to some serious success in 2025. I'm sure he'll be terrible some point this year, and they'll probably bench him for Richardson. And I don't think Richardson will perform well because they've absolutely shot the dude's confidence. So I don't know. I think it's a terrible decision. You guys let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.